Due to technical difficulties, we join this footage of Johnson City Story Slam winner Danielle Bellone, approximately 15 seconds in progress.
And looking your best. Now by this point, I was already descending the geek needle all the way into the red by reading science fiction novels during recess. So looking back, maybe I could have benefited from some of those badges that improve social skills. It might have saved me a few swirlies later. But at the time, I was not into it. I didn't want to do it. This was so lame. I could be reading. And so I began these really carefully planned acts of sabotage. Like I would purposefully mistie the yarn on our friendship bracelets. It was my very subtle way of telling our troop leader exactly where she could stick that craft badge. Unfortunately, it was a little too subtle because everyone just thought I sucked at friendship bracelet making. So I had to resort to more direct measures. I started to beg my mother. I said, I don't want to do it. It's so boring. I don't like it. And we have to wear those uniforms. I don't look good in green or khaki. It wasn't my colors. And she said, Danielle, okay. When not even the promise of Samoas and Thin Mints could convince me. I was not having it. She said, all right. You don't have to go to Girl Scouts anymore, but we have to find something social for you to do. It's really important. We need to find something, and find it we did. That very next month, I joined the Indian Princesses. Yes, it was glorious. The Indian Princesses is an organization for dads and daughters, right? You get to belong to a tribe. We were the Arapaho. And you get to go to meetings at various dads' houses. And best of all, you get to pick your very own Indian name. Oh yes, this was very exciting. I obviously wanted to be Tiger Lily from Peter Pan, because that was the only Indian name that I knew. But that was already taken, so I let my mother pick for me, and she dubbed me White Swan. This was very generous because at this time in terms of grace, I was more like a penguin than a swan. But nobody seemed to notice. And my dad, in keeping with the bird theme, became Sitting Duck. I realize now that this is the most culturally insensitive thing I've ever done in my life. But at the time, there was nothing better than going over to the house of my new friend, Rainbow Flower, and her dad, Squatting Dog. Knowing that in a few brief moments, we would be learning traditional Arapaho songs like Jambalaya Crawfish Pie Filet Gumbo. Oh yes, it was great. And there was no weeding of lanyards. Oh no, none of that. When we went to Wounded Buffalo's house, we made tomahawks from balsa wood and strips of leather from Hobby Lobby. Serious business. Now, once a year, all of the tribes in the area have this camping trip, right? And they call it a powwow. And it was very exciting. And to my memory, although I'm sure this is grossly exaggerated now, but in my memory there were hundreds of girls there with their dads. But I knew that my dad was by far the coolest because he had brought his guitar. You know, and with the guitar you can sing traditional Arapaho songs like Jambalaya, Crawfish Pie Filet Gumbo. Those time-honored chants. Right, so I kept waiting. I waited and waited for him to start playing the guitar, but he never did. I mean, we pitched the tent, we did all of the group activities, we ate ravioli from the can. Like all the things that real Indians would have done. We did them. But he never pulled out his guitar, and night fell, and I was pretty disappointed. So I, climbed into my sleeping bag, a little let down feeling, and I had just wiggled in and zipped myself up like a little burrito. When my dad poked his head into the tent, he said, "Hey, Danielle, come on, let's go." He tossed his head, and he grabbed his guitar. And so I followed him out of the tent. Now, by this time it's dark, and we don't have our flashlights, and we're just tromping along. We start tromping into sort of thicker and thicker woods, away from the campsite. And at this point, I was very glad that my dad had his guitar. Not only because it made him cool, but also so that he could use it as a weapon in case we were attacked by wolves. Since I didn't know what was going to happen, I didn't think to bring my tomahawk. So he tromps along, and I'm stumbling over roots, and we're getting into like thicker and darker areas when finally he picks a spot and sits on a log and starts playing. And he played and we sang for what felt like hours. He played these really beautiful, lovely songs like "For Emily, Wherever I May Find Her," and "Longer Boats Are Coming to Win Us," which was way lower than his actual pitch range, but I didn't know at the time. And he played funny songs too, like "The Cat Came Back." I don't know if you know this song.
Oh,
Yeah? For those of you who don't, it's about a guy who tries successively more terrible ways to kill a cat who keeps coming back. I think maybe at the end they both end up dead, or I don't know. It's kind of morbid and a little disturbing now that I think about it. But at the time, it was hilarious. It was just wonderful. And because it was so dark, I couldn't see anything but the glint of moonlight on his truly enormous glasses and a little bit of the same on the rim of the guitar. And so for that moment, there was nothing in the entire world but my dad sitting duck, his guitar, and me under the stars singing strange heathen hymns into the night. And I don't think that my participation in Indian Princesses taught me anything whatsoever about actual Native American culture. And I'm also pretty sure that it did not skew my social tendencies into a less weird direction. But I'm grateful for it all the same, for that strange moment in the dark.